I'm Miles Morales. But you can call me the Prowler.
Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse finally has a new release date, and it's making Marvel history. Sony originally aimed to drop the movie on March 28th, 2024, just 304 days after Across. But once that sequel hit theaters, it became clear the team couldn't realistically finish the third film on time. Now the trilogy Closer is set to arrive on June 24th, 2027, more than 3 years later than planned. That's officially the longest delay in Marvel movie history, even passing the 868-day push of The New Mutants. Though, to be fair, Blade is on track to break that record too. That film was supposed to launch back on November 2nd, 2023, nearly 670 days ago, and with no director locked in, many are wondering if it'll ever actually happen. There's no denying that a 3-year wait for Beyond is frustrating for fans, but when you compare it to the 4.5 years that passed between the first 2 Spider-Verse movies, it doesn't sound quite as wild, and taking extra time has paid off before. The creative team had room to craft something unique with Across, and a lot of people now call it the greatest comic book movie ever made. If Beyond manages to shock us again, then honestly, the wait will be worth it. The animated blockbuster is now positioned to hit theaters a year after Spider-Man Brand New Day and right between Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. That's some serious competition, but it also means Spider-Man will be swinging in during one of Marvel's biggest stretches ever. The original Into the Spider-Verse didn't just raise the bar, it smashed it to pieces. The wild art style, frame rate tricks, and comic book textures were unlike anything fans had seen before. It didn't just inspire audiences, it changed the entire animation industry. Studios like Disney and DreamWorks suddenly had to rethink their own style because animation wasn't just for kids anymore. It was bold, daring, and cinematic. Then came Across the Spider-Verse, which somehow managed to top all of that. The story dug deeper, the action exploded across the multiverse, and the sheer creativity on display was unreal. We got spider people from every possible dimension, emotional gut punches that hit harder than expected, and one of the craziest cliffhangers in superhero history. Now Beyond is tasked with wrapping this trilogy in a way that does justice to everything that came before. That's no easy job. Phil Lord and Chris Miller have said this is the toughest project they've ever taken on, both creatively and technically. Animation has evolved massively since the first movie, and they're pushing it even further this time with more detail, bigger spectacle, and heavier emotion. Closing out one of the most beloved Spider-Man stories ever? That's a massive challenge on its own, but people forget how complicated animation really is. It can be even tougher than live action. The process starts with endless drafts and rewrites, followed by concept art and storyboards. Then there's voice recording, which is a huge scheduling puzzle since actors are often spread across different cities. And the animation itself? That can take years, with massive teams working around the clock. And even after all that, you've still got editing, the score, effects, and post-production magic to tie it all together. At the core of this movie, it's all about Miles versus the Spot, and that's where things get real. The third film is expected to zero in on their showdown, with Miles racing against time to save his dad from the fate he already glimpsed. Jason Schwartzman is officially returning to voice the Spot, which makes perfect sense given what director Kemp Powers confirmed to Total Film. From the very beginning, the Spot's arc was designed to stretch across 2 movies, tightly woven into Miles' journey. That's what makes him so dangerous. He's not just a trippy, portal-punching visual. He's a legit threat who strikes right at the heart of everything Miles stands for. And now, all of that is building toward one final, brutal collision. Beyond is also set to pick up right where Across the Spider-Verse left off. Miles stuck in Earth 42 face to face with the darker version of himself, the one who became the Prowler. Based on the latest stills, it looks like the movie will dive straight into that scene to open things up. And yeah, we're almost definitely getting a Miles versus Prowler Miles fight right at the start, but don't expect that to dominate the whole story. The Prowler isn't about to join the Spider Team, but you can bet he'll come back when it matters most. Maybe in a third act twist, maybe in a gut punch moment where he collides with another version of his parents. Theories are flying left and right, and honestly, that speculation is half the fun of the Spider-Verse. Across dropped that insane twist. The Miles we'd been following all along got stuck in a parallel universe where his double grew up to become the Prowler. That reveal alone had fans buzzing non-stop. Then Shemek Moore poured gasoline on the fire when he teased that he'd actually be playing 3 different versions of Miles and Beyond. Naturally, the internet lost its mind. For a minute, it really felt like we'd gotten our first huge spoiler, but Moore quickly walked it back, saying he only meant this was the 3rd Spider-Verse movie he's voicing Miles in, not that we'd see 3 separate versions. Still, was that a real clarification, or just quick damage control? Because not long after, reliable insider Alex Perez doubled down, saying multiple Miles variants are absolutely coming in Beyond, and some of them won't even be voiced by Moore. That would be a first for this trilogy, and honestly, it sounds like a game-changing reveal. Fans have been dying to see how this story wraps ever since Across ended with Miles trapped in Earth 42, and when Sony delayed the finale, the hype only got more intense. Add in the tease about more Miles variants and it's off the charts. Remember what Miguel said in Across, the only reason Miles became Spider-Man is because he was never supposed to in the first place. That radioactive spider came from another dimension, leaving its own world without a Spidey. But we still don't know if Miguel was right or if his obsession is just paranoia in disguise. If Beyond introduces multiple versions of Miles, that could finally give us the answer. Picture it, different Miles across the multiverse, each becoming Spider-Man in their own realities. That would blow Miguel's whole argument to pieces. But what if some of those Miles don't become Spider-Man at all? What if they stay regular kids, without powers, without the mask? That would raise even bigger questions about our Miles. Did he change his destiny, or did his existence really fracture the multiverse? And while we're at it, where was Miguel when Gwen was hopping dimensions back in the first film? These so-called canon rules already look shaky at best. Gwen's dad quits the Force, survives, and the universe doesn't implode. So who's to say Miles' dad can't survive too? Maybe all this talk of canon events is just Miguel trying to enforce control, or his own desperate attempt to keep the chaos in check. When you look closer, the Spider-Verse rules have cracks all over them, which means in Beyond the Spider-Verse, literally everything is still in play. By Miguel's logic, Earth 42 shouldn't even exist. A canon-breaking anomaly like that should have collapsed the whole dimension, but it's still there. Twisted, corrupted, drowning in crime, but alive all the same. That fact alone proves Miguel is either completely wrong or willfully ignoring the truth. At the same time, there's a powerful emotional thread tying the two Miles together. The Prowler sees himself in OG Miles, not just in looks, but in spirit. That same fire, that same desperate urge to protect a parent, that was once his drive too. And for OG Miles, staring down the Prowler is like looking into a cracked mirror. It's a haunting reminder of what his own life could have been if his father had died earlier, or if he'd never had Spider-Man's legacy to shape him. Their conflict isn't just fists and punches, it's empathy, perspective, and that razor-thin line between hope and despair. The opening act of Beyond will almost definitely lean into that duality. The internal and external clash between these two versions of Miles sets the emotional spark that powers the rest of the story. And for OG Miles, it only sharpens his determination to carve out his own path. He's finished letting Miguel's so-called canon events dictate his life. He's Spider-Man, and Spider-Man always tries to save everyone, no matter how impossible it looks. That's been his whole story since the beginning. He doesn't let the world decide who he is. He chose his future, his identity, and now he's making the biggest choice of all, to fight for his dad's life, fate be damned. If he succeeds, if he can break the cycle without breaking the multiverse, it would be the perfect close to his trilogy, but don't expect a neat, happy ending. Someone's probably going to pay the price. That's how these stories usually go. And honestly, all the signs point to Gwen. She already said it herself, Spider-Man never gets a happy ending. That tragic theme has followed her since the comics, and if she ends up sacrificing herself to save Miles or rewrite the canon, it would be devastating, but unforgettable. The emotional payoff would be massive. Do I want it to happen? Not a chance. Because maybe the rules don't matter. Maybe Miguel's wrong, and destiny isn't fixed at all. Maybe the multiverse isn't about strict order. It's built on chaos. Maybe these characters can bend the rules and still make it out okay. Gwen's death might feel like canon, but that doesn't mean it's inevitable. And Beyond is already confirmed to bring in alternate versions of Gwen, which cracks open a ton of possibilities. Personally, I'd love to see Carnage Gwen from the comics, the version Otto Octavius cloned using symbiote DNA. Imagine throwing that kind of chaos into the mix. Totally unpredictable, completely wild, and exactly the kind of madness the Spider-Verse thrives on.